Welcome, Shu. So pleased that you could make it today. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your investments, about the firm, and what you like to invest in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Hmm.
Hi everyone. This is Shuo. I'm a general partner at IOVC as well as faculty at UC Berkeley. So, in my investing role, I predominantly focus on seed stage B2B startups that power the future of work. And so, what that really means is that we invest in four specific pillars under future of work. And we've been doing this since 2016. So,
Okay.
first pillar being digital transformation. Given both my business partner and I are formerly B2B founders and went into later stage, I was at Goldman Sachs in investment banking covering tech. He was also at a tech private equity fund. We really have seen how much these traditional corporates can benefit from digital transformation and just updated use of tools and software across all their functions. The second pillar we invest in is an automation of work, not just in software that help automate the things that we do at work and optimize that process, but also platforms that help us do things that we are uniquely good at as humans. So, with more automation that's available at work, what tools can we leverage to be coached so that we can focus better on empathy and leadership skills, etc.? Pillar three is we invest in the hybridization of workplace. And so this is not a new post COVID thesis. We've been doing this again since 2016.
Good, good.
Exactly. So, what we really mean by hybridization is not just remote work, but the fact that the workplace is bound to change in many ways. In fact,
Yeah.
one of the investments that we made very early on was that we invested in the seed round of Boom Supersonic, which is now a unicorn. They obviously provide supersonic jets. I think they are now on a lot of billboards in different airports, including the ones in New York, given their latest partnership with United. So, helping people travel better, faster for work. But of course, there's going to be all these other platforms that we'll leverage to do work differently in terms of thinking about what the workplace looks like going forward. And the last and fourth pillar of our investment is really looking at diversity of workforce. And I mean diversity in all senses, not just in the traditional sense. We have a new generation that's completely different than before coming into the workplace with different values and different expectations of
Mm.
what they can use as tools and software at work. In fact, in my part time role teaching as faculty at UC Berkeley, specifically under College of Engineering, I get about 60% undergrads and 40% grad students. And
Mm.
out of all the undergrads, they're all born post 2000 now, right? So it's a
Right.
very different generation. And when you talk to them, you can see very clearly that there will be a whole suite of other tools that they need access to when they get into the workplace. It's not like before where someone is willing to put up with bad software when they show up at work. It's that if they really don't have an enjoyable experience, they will change jobs, and hence contributing a lot to kind of the great resignation that we're seeing now. So, to recap, the four areas that we look at under future of work are one, digital transformation, two,
Yep.
automation of work, three, hybridization of workplace, and four, diversity of workforce.
Wow, you guys are really making a difference, and I'm excited to hear about all those themes or pillars. And could you tell me how it's been for you in the Bay Area with since the crisis? Has how have things changed? I know a lot of investors have been telling me that things are booming digitally, which is great. It's great that not everyone's suffering. So, could you give me some background about how that's been going for you and your partner?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. In fact, from when we first institutionalized our Fund 1 in 2016, and even when we had Fund 2 end of 2017, enterprise SaaS and B2B honestly wasn't the hottest topic of Silicon Valley. In fact,
Yeah.
across
Yeah.
those years, I would say consumer was very popular, and then blockchain, crypto, autonomous driving, VR, AR, they all kind of had their hot buzzwords of the year. And so
Yeah.
it was actually great timing for us to start looking at future of work then when valuations were very reasonable and not many people were paying attention to all the opportunities. So it has been great for us to invest all those time and resources early on in the journey to really look at that. So fast forward to the pandemic, there's been a lot of devastation throughout the
Yeah.
pandemic. Um,
Yeah.
uh, and so if
Globally,
I
really.
absolutely,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
fact, My grandmother unfortunately passed away recently,
Oh, sweetie,
really
sorry.
so during the pandemic as well. So
Sorry.
if I really had to name a silver lining, it's the fact that working remotely has given us the opportunity to spend more time with family, time that we'll never get back in other
Yeah.
ways. And
Yeah.
so um, I wish I had known about all of this when we first started investing in this space back, X years ago. But really, it is now in retrospect that I'm realizing all the good in terms of the full extent to which the kinds of companies that we're investing in can be helpful by making it significantly easier for people to work not in specifically one place and to be able to effectively get that work done so that they don't have to sacrifice family time. And so if I had to name a silver lining coming out of COVID, in addition to spending more time with family, it's that more and more people are paying attention to future of work more so than ever before. And I do think that that is a great direction that we're going into because it allows us to be able to more effectively get things done without a physical restraint.
And, we were talking earlier about the sort of humanization of online video calls. Have you noted new things coming up with startups to sort of solve that really big problem of looking at yourself when you're trying to have an engaged conversation with someone else?
Absolutely. So
Oh,
there's
good.
plenty of startups that are working on this, even specific features. So not even as an individual platform, but features where, for example, on Zoom, you can just hide the view of yourself. So you're not
Right,
looking at yourself. Though I
right.
do still feel like even when you're not looking at yourself, you're consciously aware of the fact that you're on camera. So it's a little bit
Yeah,
of a different feeling.
yeah.
But there's a variety of new wellness tools that have emerged over time as well to monitor for
Great,
not just camera time, but also well
great.
being at work. We've invested in a few of those. One of the earliest investments we had made is in the startup called Torch. They've actually raised Series B during the pandemic. They are really an integrated platform for learning and development that focuses on leadership skills, that measures employee growth, but also helps kind of intervene to ensure well being at the right times. In fact, the founder of this particular startup actually worked as a coach, and his previous co founder is working in the mental health space. So it is something that they actively think about day to day. And so I'm really excited to be a part of the journey to see them grow.
Yeah.
And so to go back somewhat to your earlier question, even throughout the pandemic, we've really seen a lot of our portfolio companies actually double down on growth and be able to raise faster now that people are finally paying attention to the importance of building relationships and mentoring and overall well being at work.
Mm, mm.
In fact, to mention this very briefly, earlier this year, the beginning of this year, actually, I was appointed by the California governor onto California's statewide mental health commission. And
Oh,
I've been
great.
serving as one of 13 voting commissioners, actually the first Asian American, and currently still only, on this particular commission. And we're doing a lot of work on not just thinking about raising awareness and decreasing stigma, but how do we also think about mental health in the workplace and thinking about well-being beyond just physical well-being.
Congratulations on that. I mean,
Thank you very
it
much.
certainly is a huge issue that has emerged um, about people needing to have more self-care and understanding of others. With the mental stress or you know mind sort of stuff that's been happening due to very unusual situations with the virus. And you did mention that you're focused on diversity. And my background is I did a project in 2010 trying to raise awareness about why women are invested less than men, and
Mm,
video interviewed a lot of VCs and women founders about what the problems were, and did a
mhm,
summary ebook at the end of that year. So I've got a big passion about supporting diversity, particularly in the Valley, because it seemed to be a
mhm,
stronghold of lack of diversity. And I was wondering, because I also know in this crisis that women have seemed to have suffered more than men in the sense
mhm,
that they often are caregivers or have responsibilities that they might take more seriously. And there's a lot of homeschooling that women have done. I know my daughters in Australia were having to homeschool as well as work from home.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of big challenges that women have faced during this crisis. Is there anything that you could comment on as regards what you're seeing coming up the pipeline?
Absolutely. So you're spot on in that women have suffered more during the pandemic, whether it's suffering from more burnout or less pay or average wealth increase throughout the
Mm,
pandemic being unequally distributed between men and women. So
yeah.
there's plenty of stats that we can look at, even to the extent of performance at work being affected because women have all these additional responsibilities. So absolutely. In
Mm,
terms of coming out of the pandemic, I think at least one promising trend is that we have more focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion more so than ever before, not
great.
just limited to minorities in terms of female founders or female investors, but also more broadly to different ethnicities that historically have been under represented in the industry. So I
Fabulous.
do find this particular trend promising. And I do think that it is important, in addition for this being a bottoms up effort, that it's also a top down effort. In that if we have top level allocators just reallocating a very small percentage of their capital towards more diverse fund managers and founders, that has tremendous ripple effects throughout the industry. In fact, it allows more female founders and more female investors and general partners to be more outspoken about the work that they do, and as a result increase representation in the industry. And I do think that that's extremely important, because how can girls grow up knowing that that's something they can do if they've never had exposure to the idea, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I do think that education and awareness and seeing representation is an extremely important part of the story. And so, one quick thing I will add is
Yes.
like, coming out of the pandemic, I am actually very excited to see that for younger generations, regardless of their background, they've had more opportunities to do internships in diverse industries. In fact, out of all of my students, I was constantly surprised by how many internships they had done during the period of time when they were all going to school remotely. Many of them have worked across multiple startups. Some of them have even started to do internships at different investment firms. And I do think
Wow.
that that is a very optimistic future that I am
Yeah.
looking at.
Yeah,
So that is
incredible
something.
experience for them, hey? And
Absolutely.
they're coming into the workforce. That's fantastic, really. I mean, I don't
Mhm.
think years past that those sort of opportunities would have been available. So that's fabulous. That's really good to know and be aware of.
Definitely.
And I was also wondering too. Really the big I usually ask all my investor interviewees, um, where you think things are heading, because you are in an enviable situation of seeing, you know, where the future is, I guess, and where is innovation coming from. So, what's your glimpses or insights that you would share with the audience?
So I really do take this responsibility very seriously, because as investors, our job is really to invest in what the future will look like or should look like,
Mm,
right?
mm,
In that, if you are spending capital, if you're investing capital and time and resources into building those initiatives, then of course they have a higher likelihood of success in becoming what the future looks like. But if you don't spend even the capital investment now, then of course it's going to be that much harder for that to become a reality in the near future. So we do take this responsibility very seriously. And part of that means that we do invest in diverse founders, not necessarily as an explicit fund mandate, but it just happens by naturally the fact that both of our general partners are diverse in our own ways.
mm.
So specifically in terms of industry, though, the latest data that's actually put together by Dell indicates that 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 weren't even invented just 5 years ago. And so
Wow.
if we think about how just how quickly the world is changing and future
Change.
work is evolving,
Yeah,
right? It is crazy how many things will happen just from now until 2030, which is not that far from now. So
yeah.
when we think about that, I'm really excited to be investing in future of work, because it means that we're investing in all the infrastructure tools that will make jobs of the future as successful as we can make them to be. And it is important to focus on all those four pillars that we discussed, because all of them contribute to overall success in the long run.
Yeah. And it's an interesting that we're living in this time, because I notice when I always say to people, everything's changed and it will never go back to the way it was, exactly the same
Mhm.
as it was. People don't believe me. So I'm wondering how you are handling that, because you're really in a very hot seat as regards innovation.
Mhm. I do think that it's an ongoing conversation. I
Okay.
do think that the silver lining has been that, of course, the pandemic has acted as an accelerator for many
Yep.
industries to push things
Yep.
forward, particularly when it comes to anything related to future of work. But
Yep.
again, it's an ongoing process and never kind of a one event triggers everything else. So, in terms of this conversation around thinking about driving forward innovation, overcoming any sort of inertia that's currently in place, it will require this is a team effort from all the stakeholders, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we really do need to work across bottoms up in terms of having our new generations be comfortable with using exponential tech enabled tools, but we also need to educate top down in terms of having our leaders feel prepared and ready to be able to take on some of these challenges. So some very practical things that I think has been really great coming out of, or at least we're still in the process of coming out of the pandemic, has been exactly like you shared earlier. More people care about learning in a completely different way than ever before. So
Mm.
the course that I'm teaching at Berkeley this semester is actually our first course on edtech and entrepreneurship. So
Oh, great.
what is really fascinating is we cover everything from early childhood education, K to 12 and tertiary, all the way up to future of work and upscaling. And the reason why this span is so important is that we used to think of future of education and future of work as two very distinct things, where we are in our role as a student and then we transition to become a professional where we work. And the two are kind of separate. But that's no longer true nowadays.
Mm.
We are students, but in that role, we're expected to prepare for what a future job might look like. Vice versa, we are working, but we're expected to continue to learn and evolve on the job. In
Mm.
fact, when you look at the latest data published by LinkedIn, almost 70% of employees actually indicate that they would like to learn while on the job. And they would, in fact, prioritize jobs where they get to learn on that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if people are expecting to be able to learn while they're doing work, then we're looking at a very different landscape of opportunity. Where, as individuals, regardless of how young or how old or what profession we're in,
Yeah.
continuing to expose ourselves to to new ideas, to new platforms, to new technologies, and challenging ourselves to learn is extremely important. And actually, that's why I think the podcast that you're running is so valuable in terms of exposing people to these different and new ideas. And so I've personally been playing a small part, or trying to play a small part in that as well, partly in my teaching role, and also partly in my role serving as a board member for Decode. So Decode is now the largest tech and innovation nonprofit that's co-hosted with Berkeley and Stanford. When they first started, it was really quite a small scale event, but since the pandemic, they've really scaled things up. In fact, the last virtual annual conference they hosted had over 1.4 million views on live stream
Woo!
platforms. So
Wow.
I was blown away when I saw the
Yeah.
amazing work of our students and alumni.
Yeah.
And I have the honor of serving on the board alongside other wonderful people, including the CTO of Microsoft US, the Chief Privacy Officer at Google, and many other extremely experienced and talented folks who have been really focused on giving back. And so, as part of that particular experience, I've had the fortune of hosting a few conversations. Obviously, pre pandemic in person, but since the pandemic, virtual, where hopefully I'm playing a small role in terms of better exposing our students and alumni to what's happening in real time in the industry.
Mm.
And so, we weren't quite as smart as you, though, that we had most of this still on video, not on podcast. So
Right.
for anyone who's interested, they can find it on YouTube.
Great.
But I would certainly agree with you that podcast would be a lot more relaxed as a setting.
Yeah. I have to say, you've captured sort of my essence as well. I think the thing that's kept me going for so many years in so many different countries is just a great desire to learn and an openness to new things and innovation. So, Yeah, I agree. It's like our life force almost. But
Mhm.
have experienced that very much personally. So really appreciate the work that you're doing, and fabulous to get all this feedback from you. Shu, it's been really great talking to you today, and I wish you all the best with all your projects and investments.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's fine. It's been a pleasure. So maybe down the line we'll hear more from you to hear how things have progressed. Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you.